In both of them, Vin Diesel says, "I love you guys," so it's okay.
Hey, that's true. Shit. He is in both
Someone
of them.
passed this.
That's true.
James Gunn was secretly writing the script for Fast X. We just didn't know it.
And the level of acting for both characters were
The
actually
same,
same.
So
the same expression.
Are you saying the CGI tree showed more emotion in the face?
Just about the same.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Heroes Peak Podcast. I'm your host, Chris, here with you, as always, with my wonderful friends and co-hosts. We have coming all the way from the frigid north. Wait, it's not frigid, is it? I don't know. It's Mike. It's burning. What's going on up there?
It's not burning. It's just a nationwide barbecue. You guys weren't invited. That's all.
Oh, we got to smell the good old hickory maple flavor coming out.
That's right.
Down here.
An elk.
It's
the
the maple bacon on the barbecue. That's all it is.
That smelled too good for a forest fire.
Yeah. Is it still yellow out there in the skies, or?
No, it's
no longer Krypton. No.
At least here, on the other side of the Great Lake, it's fine. Like it was gone after like 3 days.
Oh, okay.
And also with us today, our favorite geek of the pod is James. How you doing, James?
Yeah, man. Congratulations to my Denver Nuggets.
My Denver Nuggets. You called it. You called it. You said 4-1.
Yo,
I gotta give you that.
He's been a lifelong Nuggets fan since 1953.
Yeah. Although I incorrectly called Game 3 being the lone Miami game.
Well, that's the first home game. Yeah,
it
seems like an obvious win, but
yeah. So
I don't know those
Uncle Freezy. Sorry, Uncle Freezy.
Right. That Heat shooting was Fast X level of quality here.
The refs as well in that last game was Fast X level.
All right. So tonight we are going to be talking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I finally got to see it. I know I'm behind on this, guys, but we'll be doing a couple of reviews in the next week, trying to get them out there for the people, for the fans, for the wonderful listeners.
Let's just put it this way: the next two reviews we're doing, including this one, are pretty much about family, and one does it right, and one not so much.
You're talking Quantumania.
That's right. No, I was talking about CW Flash, but okay, anyway.
That's right. Hey,
I know what you meant, Mike.
In both of them, Vin Diesel says, "I love you guys," so it's okay.
Hey, that's true. Shit. He is.
Someone passed this.
That's true.
James Gunn was secretly writing the script for Fast X. We just didn't know it.
And the level of acting for both characters were actually
the
same.
So
the same expression.
Are you saying the CGI tree showed more emotion in the face?
Just about the same.
All right, we're gonna get along to Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So 9 years after the first Guardians changed the makeup of the MCU, we get the final piece of the James Gunn helmed trilogy, the sixth trilogy in the MCU, as DC just kind of gets going again. All right.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to ask you guys before we get started on the review is what was your expectations going into Guardians 1 and what was your expectations going into Guardians 3? Because these are very different places in the universe right now.
Yeah, so with Guardians 1, God, when was that? 20 years ago? Jesus.
14.
Yeah,
2014.
Right?
2014, yeah. It was part of the Phase 2 triumvirate return to form.
Yeah, I didn't.
No, Phase 3.
And Captain America Winter Soldier. No, it was Phase 2.
Oh, it's the end of Phase 2.
Yeah, because Phase 2 had the terrible Iron Man 3 and
the weak start.
Freaking Thor 2. And then
Ultron,
Winter Soldier and
And back then
Guardians.
that was like everybody was like, "It's the end of the MCU, damn it!"
It was pretty close, honestly. If they did a Star Wars and put a 10-year break in between Phase 1 and Phase 2,
Mm-hmm.
people would have been watching like, I'm not going back to this thing. What the heck? What'd they do? They destroyed this.
Yeah.
Notice it's a cycle, man. It's a cycle. We're saying the same thing too until Spider-Man and this movie comes out.
Yeah. So
So anyway,
with Guardians 1, like I didn't know much about the Guardians. I've heard of them, obviously.
nobody.
Yeah, nobody really knew. Like I didn't know much. So, but seeing the trailers and stuff, I was excited. And this was pre Chris Pratt is a religious nut kind of stuff on social media, and dissing his ex-wife and all that stuff. But I was a fan of him from Parks and Rec, so it was kind of a weird casting choice. I was like, he's gonna play Star-Lord, the pudgy guy from Parks and Rec. Okay, let's see.
Right.
But he got in shape for it, and he took on the role. He did a good job, and Guardians 1 really surprised me, as I think it surprised a lot of people. Turned out to be like the hit of the summer. James Gunn showing what he's capable of.
Which we didn't really know.
Right, exactly. We people probably heard of him, but I wasn't very familiar with his work. And then after this, I was like, yeah, bring it on, man, bring it on. And then let's cut to number 3. I was hoping for more of the same, and it did not disappoint. I was very satisfied with this movie. It was like a sad but kind of optimistic ending for me. It was still,
Mm-hmm.
that this is it. This is the last ride for them, basically. And so, but a great movie overall. So James Gunn, I have full faith in him heading up DC's creative teams, and let's see what he brings to the table over there. I have a feeling he'll do a good job.
All right, James.
Much of what Mike said, I agree with. I think again, to me, that period of the MCU in 2014, where post Iron Man 3 and Thor 2, and all of a sudden I was kind of like, man, all the highs we got from Avengers, one movie, it was like we're wasting all that good credit. And then came Winter Soldier that April, and then August, followed by this movie. To me, I think that was the period where all of a sudden we realized these Marvel movies can be more than just bubblegum, campy, big explosions on screen. They could be actually great stories written in the MCU formula that will be perfected further on in Phase 2 and Phase 3. So knowing that this movie was coming out to close out the trilogy was a bittersweet moment, and I mentioned that on my quick peek that I feel like this to me was closer to the Phase 3 MCU and the closeout of the Infinity Saga as we know it, less than so this Phase 4, Phase 5, whatever quasi phase that we're in right now with MCU. So watching this movie, well, seeing the trailers for this movie, I gave this movie much more of an allowance. For it to be great than I did anything post Avengers Endgame. And that includes Spider-Man No Way Home. That includes, Shang-Chi. This was the movie that I thought would at least do well, if not better than expectations. And I was not disappointed.
Yeah, I just want to add real quick. I think this would have been, had this movie been a failure, this might have been that breaking point for the MCU.
Oh,
Yeah.
I would have felt like all of the New York Knicks and Lakers fans across the world.
Because think about it. What's next? The Marvels, right? So,
Right.
so
Secret Invasion.
yeah, live action
movie
movies,
or
the theater movies.
Yeah, be Marvels.
So
Yeah.
if this one had been a flop, I don't think we would get. I think because this is on a high,
and we mean flop in Marvel terms.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like $600-700 million, but not getting the praise,
Exactly.
not getting the fan excitement for keep going. Yeah, exactly.
Like Ant-Man.
Yeah, so I
million.
think if this had been a down note for the MCU, it will affect the upcoming Marvels movie. So I think because this one, they did the right move by putting this one right in front of it. So
yeah, I mean I remember specifically the discussions around Guardians 1 was, what are they doing? This is an unknown property. This gun guy has this weird, dirty sense of humor. And all his, I remember his Twitters being posted and shit like that.
That came a little bit later on, but
Well,
yeah.
no, he had like this, like lowbrow humor movies and shit that he had released, so people were starting to kind of take notice. But they were like this is gonna be the first. This is gonna be the first real crash of the MCU. Even though Dark World had already happened and it had already happened, people were like, "This is gonna be a complete dud." They were just expecting a dud. So when it came out, and people were like, "I love not only Groot, which was the obvious, fun ending, cutesy, but also like my my niece dressed up as Star Lord for Halloween." Like it was instant. People loved this entire crew, and we weren't even ready for the Zoe Salata in face paint being
Zoe Salata. What is that?
Saldana.
Saldana
Zoe.
in face in cool color.
You sound like the Penguin in the Batman Reeves. Rana Lana.
You guys even speak Spanish? What's wrong
Yeah, I
with you?
speak Spanish right
No
now.
habla español. Chris.
I don't.
Am I
I
the one that
failed
took third
Spanish.
grade too?
Don't give me I failed that.
Sorry,
I
I didn't
don't
mean to
speak
cut you
other
off there.
languages but English.
You don't speak English like me and Groot, like Rocket said in the first movie.
Hey, I speak Groot now. Apparently,
There you go.
no. Anyway, like I just remember that we weren't familiar. We weren't ready for the $1 billion. What is Zoe in face paint?
Mm.
She brings into the movie theaters. But yeah, I don't. Anybody wasn't ready for how much heart we were about to get for all of the James Gunness of it. And then this one, I think we were all just a little worried, especially after the highs of Thor Ragnarok and how the fourth Thor movie kind of went, "Oh, did they give him too much leeway? Did you know,
Oh, Taika, you mean?
did yeah,
Yeah,
Tycho.
that's what I'm
yeah.
saying. So from Thor Ragnarok, where everybody was absolutely in love, and after the MCU, after Phase 3, everybody's like, they should let all of the directors do whatever the hell they want. And what happened is we got this very
That's
wild
interesting.
look. I'm higher on the rest of the MCU afterwards than most people, but it really is very much director creator driven, maybe not 100%, but like 85% in a lot of these. And they didn't quite capture the magic as much as we would like. Some were worse
Yeah.
than others. So
I
specifically, Thor was worse than like Eternals, but
Yeah.
like Multiverse of Magic was interesting, had some great parts, but it didn't quite get there.
Madness.
Whereas this, I think this kind of captured the game James Gunn of it while also getting us in the feels and being a complete story and being everything we wanted out of a Marvel movie, and not just be, hey, the director got to put their face on the movie screen and that's good enough, right?
Mm,
Yeah, Chris, I want to disagree with you slightly because I would agree with you if it wasn't for the fact that we were able to see other products of James Gunn in between the time where, remember, at one point after Guardians 2, Disney had, I don't know, fired him or put him, whatever it was because of the tweet
right.
surfaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he went on to DC to start doing stuff like the Suicide Squad and then the HBO
Mm-hmm.
Max, whatever it is, the
Peacemaker.
HBO Max show with
Peacemaker.
Peacemakers. So to me, in the time, sabbatical period that he was away from Marvel, he was at least proving to me that he could still do other products and do it at a high level with like secondary and tertiary characters in a major IP, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's both the Suicide Squad and in the Peacemakers. So I think he was the one director that I, again, going back to how much allowance and credit I was giving him, as opposed to Taika Waititi, who I realized after Thor Ragnarok, I need maybe simmer that back, take my
Well, like
credit back a little
Jojo
bit.
Rabbit hit and everybody was in love with Jojo Rabbit
I
too.
was not.
Yeah, I
I guess it
enjoyed
was.
it.
So
I'm
Yeah,
yeah,
but
I'm
it's
being a bit more
mm,
generalized in the fact that
yeah,
it did get a lot of love for what it was,
true,
for how
true.
for how tight that material, that line you have to walk for material such as that, right?
I agree. I agree.
But it's like, wow, did Marvel give him too much leeway in what he wanted to do with the property? For what we as fans want in the property and what he as a creator wants to do,
Yeah.
there seemed to be a
Yeah.
disconnect in those two
I,
things.
I just don't want to make it seem like, for me per se, that my expectations were lowered because of all of the other
Hmm.
directors that came out in Phase 4 and 5. I think James Gunn was the one guy that I knew would come to deliver. He was consistent in all of his products and all of his content, and I felt like when that first trailer dropped, I was like, "Oh yeah, we're back, baby, we're back."
All right, so let's
Um,
get into this here. So this movie, number one, let's look at we'll do a quick idea of the visuals. This does not look like it was shot in the volume. I think one of the biggest complaints and shockers to me watching Ant-Man as the most recent other MCU movie was it felt so claustrophobic, even though it was supposed to be this wide, interesting, fantastical world.
Yeah.
It felt,
mm,
calling it tiny is being a little ironic, but it felt like Obi-Wan Kenobi, shot like, oh my god, it's supposed to be a giant desert scape, but it feels like you're shot in this little tiny circle of sand in front of that giant desert scape. Whereas this, I never
mhm.
felt that way. And I don't know what about the camera work, what about the look of it made it feel just, it felt right. What did you guys think of the visuals, the designs? I thought spaceships, I've recently watched the other two Guardians. Spaceship designs are fantastic.
Yeah.
I just not realizing how good the designs are within this series.
It felt like he improved to me, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Mike was about to say anything, but I felt like he improved from 1, 2, and 3. Two to me, my least favorite of the trilogy, because not so much the main villain of Ego, but also that to me might have felt the most claustrophobic of the three, because of the set pieces didn't feel as grandiose as the
Yeah,
first movie or this
I
movie.
agree with that.
I think it was really focused on egos, on some parts of Earth, and the spaceship. Whereas in this movie, the set pieces to me felt like you had a multiple different, set shots, and whether they're all CGI or partial CGI or practical effects, you have to really sit there and watch it to try to decipher between these sets, which harkens back to the first movie. I think the first movie did it very well, as far as the different set pieces. So I think James Gunn has shown to me that he's improving in his director skill set as he's doing these movies. Because if you watch the HBO show Peacemakers, that felt like a big budget superhero TV show. It felt bigger than anything Disney had given us for their Disney Plus superhero shows, other than
WandaVision.
maybe WandaVision. Yeah, maybe
But
WandaVision.
even that, those
Um,
sets are tight purposely, but they're tight. It's small.
yeah,
Whereas
to
Peacemaker
me,
felt.
that show felt on par, if not better, than Loki, and
Mm-hmm.
that's saying a lot for the
Mm.
Loki show.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know, Mike, if you were going to say something
Yeah, I
different.
mean, we had a few major set pieces. We had Nowhere. I thought looked great, an improvement from the
Mm-hmm.
last movie. We had
Mm.
The weird
the Mirror
fleshy
Earth.
space station.
Yeah, the space station. The interior kind of reminded me of the Andor prison a bit. The layout and the design of
Mm-hmm.
it. So I was okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the Mirror Earth with the Counter
Counter
Earth.
Earth,
So
yeah.
obviously, I would assume he filmed that in some abandoned town somewhere, and they just, you know,
Mm-hmm.
added CGI to whatever they needed. So, and I can't think of what other major.
The big spaceship. What's his name? Spaceship.
Yeah, and that's about it, right? So,
High
yeah.
evolutionary spaceship.
So other than that, I would imagine it's all green screen when they're traveling in the ships and whatever. So I think he did a
Mm-hmm.
great job. I didn't have a problem in the second one on Ego's planet. I thought
Ego.
it looked great. You know, um, so I didn't have an issue feeling like it didn't work for me. So I think it's just a continuation of what he's been doing. So
And I just want to compliment him and the designers on keeping the color, keeping I don't want to just call it comic booky because it's not just a comic book issue,
Mm.
but keeping it bright and interesting before your eyes. You know what I mean? Like even
Even the dark scenes, yes, I
everything,
agree.
the costuming, the dark scenes, and having some way to interestingly light them, and just overall, when there can be color, just give us some bright actual colors. You know, it didn't have that
Yeah.
gray overtone that we
Yeah.
unfortunately get used to.
And Chris, I don't know if you're gonna, because we're right now really focusing on James Gunn's
Hmm.
what he brought to this movie, not the actual plotter. I think his music choices as well
Oh, we can.
have
It's
continued to
important to
improve
this, yeah.
from the first movie, the second movie, and this movie. That's something that he's shown, and obviously, again, Peacemakers. I'm gonna show you the connection,
Hmm.
the through line between all this stuff. That in this movie, it was like another character in the movie. The music choices that he added on in a third movie in particular felt like it was part of the story and it heightened certain emotions in the story. And to me anyway, because I watched it 3 times at the movie theater, and in each scene that I knew that a moment was about to come, and watching that music resonate, and I peek at the audience just to get their live reaction, and it would hit them the same way it hit me the first time. Um, that's something that going back to what Mike said, I think James Gunn brought some great value to the Marvel, and it's a shame that he's leaving for obvious reasons, but um, it's something that we should probably give him a little more credit for as well in these movies.
He's always, I think he's consistently done great things with his musical choices, but I'll say I felt that the music choices in this one were a little more on the nose, a little less creative, a little less B-side
Mm.
than he's done in other things. Like Florence and the Machine. Really? You're going to give me a 2009 hit as your finale? I understand. Dog Days is Over. I put it on my own playlist. I love that song. I
Yeah,
just
but it
think,
shows you he started from the
Yeah.
'70s and
Remember
he's
he.
ramping up
yeah,
to
but
the
they
conclusion.
opened a 90s playlist to go Creep to start it off,
Uh.
which I understand, a little overused kind of a tune.
Mm.
Like I would have liked something. Nine Inch Nails beat like has a million songs that could cover that same feeling.
Yeah.
Just Creep is so constantly used, and like I said, going from there all the way up to a pretty modern song, I just felt this is too recognizable, too modern hit, like top 40 station kind of songs. Like I loved
Yeah.
Volume 1 because I recognized like four of those songs, and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, the rest I had to go find and I had to listen to, right?
Yeah.
And two a little less so, but still to that extent. But this one felt really like some overplayed hits a little too much to me.
Just one last
Hmm.
thing. I hear what you're saying, and I don't disagree. I think with me, the reason why it resonates with me a little bit more is because, much like the first and the second one, it felt like it belonged in certain scenes, like Rocket, for example. When this character was humming along the songs, you felt not so much your personal memory of the song when you were young, Nine Inch Nails. It's more like his character taking that song for himself at that point in
No,
time.
I completely understand it. Like Creep is a great. There's a reason it's overplayed, but when you're when you're James Gunn and you're so keyed into amazing B-side music, I think you can find that without going top 40, still played 30 years later kind of songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
All right.
That's just my take. It's a great song, and I hate being against it because it is a great song. But these great songs get overused, and like we watched the bad Suicide Squad, and we're like, oh my god, that's so on the
The
nose.
other
Like
Suicide Squad,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Rocket playing Creep when he's feeling down feels like from that level of Suicide Squad. It's so on the nose, a little too overplayed. Like it just felt. I was like, really? Come on, a little bit more creativity for me, God.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get to the heart, the meat and potatoes of this movie.
All right, so
We just finished the appetizers.
so James Gunn. This is his third, obviously third helming, but this is the first time, according to IMDb, that he's solo written one. Okay, so there's no other writing credits besides his. and he had to pick these characters up from, because they happen to live in a gigantic universe, which gives its pluses and minuses. The only reason he got to
Hmm.
have these characters is because the MCU existed. So that's you know, so you have to deal with the fact that sometimes they get taken off and they get shoved into Thor 4 or Infinity War, and shit happens.
Which he said that he was upset with that they killed Gamora off, but
But that's what you have to live with. You only got
then they
Gamora because
tagged
of it, and
Thor.
you lost her because of it. It's a give and take. But
Yeah.
he had to handle it, and I think he didn't do too much of a spending 10 minutes beginning of the movie recapping or anything. I'm glad I didn't get any recap, except for that, like, two seconds in the elevator was a little bit
In
of
the elevator,
that was
yeah.
a good fun.
It sounded like he was making like a meta joke
Right,
about the whole Infinity thing, magic stones and blah blah blah.
it's expected,
It,
but yeah, I think
it
he
was a meta joke at you know
he did a
the
good
Russo
job of
brothers.
picking these characters up, telling us, reminding us who they are and where they are and what they're about. So let's just kind of go through our characters, because that's really the meat here. Is And we'll talk about the story, their individual stories, as we go through the characters. Um, I was going to start with the villain, because this is the new character, big new character, and a little bit of we had a little bit of back and forth on our text chat about our villain here. This is the High Evolutionary. Chukwudi Iwuji is the actor who played. Um, and
You've been
I
practicing.
did. I practiced this quite a bit.
uh,
I looked it up according to you, according to an interviewer who said that to his face. So I'm gonna trust that that was correct. Anyway, um, so this is based on Rocket's background, and he's the person who created, quote unquote, created Rocket. He created the gold people, Adam Warlock, the whole shebang. Um, and I thought the actor did a fantastic job. He gave us this scary, jealous nut job, even if he got a somewhat limited screen time. Um, I think he was a solid villain, my number two of the three movie villains. Um, what did you guys think of the High
Number two.
Evolutionary?
Um, Interesting. You're number two. I think he's actually my number one because in my mind, he represents a true comic, off the comic book page villain.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always need a Magneto or a Thanos or some complicated villain sometimes. Give me the mustache twirling guy, but who's not a joke,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
right? Don't give me Ronan. Don't give
No,
me
Ronan was the joke, unfortunately, right?
yeah, exactly. Give me the dude who's just dastardly evil and is a threat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I felt like. And again, this is a actor taken from a previous James Gunn work with the Peacemakers, who I didn't think from that show he could, take this role on and do it as well. Because the way he portrayed his other character in Peacemakers, I really liked what the character brought to the story and how it was directly related to Rocket's artificial engineering. And I like the fact that at no point did the character felt like what they were doing was wrong,
Oh
right?
no, they
A
were
true,
all in.
yeah, a true villain believes, and they may have a complicated background, but ultimately they believe the ends to the means is what what their mission is the right mission. And even to his final moments, he kind of showed that to me. So I think I really like the this villain. It's actually my favorite villain of the trilogy because no offense to Ego, I think Ego was they tried to make it a more sympathetic villain
Oh
because he was
no,
directly related
I don't agree with that, but yeah,
to
okay.
yeah, he was directly related to freaking
Star Lord.
Star Lord, Peter Quill, and Peter Quill's father, and then he was a complicated villain who thought what he was doing was for the best in the universe because Celestials are lonely and blah 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 blah. It didn't land on me. Sorry, Ego. He was slightly above Ronan and definitely below this character, I think.
Mike.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with James on that one. He was a great character, great
Mhm.
villain. Again, yeah, he thought he was doing the right thing, trying to create the perfect society, which will never exist. But
Hold on, and Serena mentioned something to me, and I gotta repeat because you just said it. He was trying to create the perfect society because he felt the absence of a god in
mm,
his universe, so he had to
right.
step in. Again, he's doing what he thinks is rightfully, in
Man had a
nature.
big ego.
Yep.
Yes, yes, no pun intended.
Yep.
Ego, the planet, but yes. Go
Yeah.
ahead, Mike.
So, and
Sorry.
then even when shown his failure on the other Earth, there he decided, well, I'll just destroy the whole thing and start again. So, you know, like damn. But yeah, I thought
Mm.
it was a great performance by the actor, and great writing. So he did. I agree with some people online who said he screamed a little too much, but I didn't think it was bad
I
as they were saying.
So for me, I thought he was okay until the moment. So there's a moment where Rocket tells him, like, he's like showing Rocket, "Oh, we're trying to evolve these guys in their big tubes,
The
Yeah.
Ninja
but
Turtles.
but they're something's wrong. They're not happy. Something's not working right." And Rocket immediately points out a flaw. And I was like, okay, so he's about to take Rocket under his wing and notice, Rocket's got this thing that he needs, and he just, that actor, he flipped on a dime
hmm
and he got low, like physical acting too. He got on the floor and he was just in Rocket's face, and he was so mad, so jealous, so like every negative emotion that you could think of. Like, it was,
There's. Go ahead.
that
Sorry,
scene
Chris.
turned me from going, oh, okay, he's whatever, ha ha ha, he wants to make, he's an evil scientist. But no, that was a great scene, my favorite scene of him right there, and I thought that
There's
made
small
the villain.
physical cues that he showed. Again, this is after 3 or 4 times watching the movie. I'm able to pick this up. When he's first talking to Rocket, explain to him about the music, and Rocket says something that he doesn't quite believe in, and then he grabs Rocket, and you think it's more like he's caressing his creation, but then the way he's holding him is like
Yeah.
a terrible pet owner,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and again, he's probably holding I don't know, a bunch of tennis balls,
mm-hmm. Right.
CGI, but it
Stuffed
feels
animal.
like
Right.
he's like a terrible dog owner, and he's just showing you that he doesn't care about
Yeah.
this being,
Yeah,
as long as this being can,
he just wants to be the alpha, quote unquote,
yeah.
in that
And when
situation.
Rocket's crying after the death of Lila and Stitch and Floor, and he's like, he
Yeah.
mocks him, and he does he mocks again, he says
He does
physical
the
acting
Trump.
just as well as,
Yeah.
oh
God.
shit. Good one.
So the last thing I wanted to say about him is I was very sad to see he went out like a chump. I hated that he went out
Yeah.
worse than Kang did. At least Kang got some punches in. He got in a fist fight. This guy, he got one shot with his anti
Yeah.
gravity weapon. I understand he's not supposed to be a physical fighter, but he got one shot with the anti gravity weapon, and then so he was supposed to look dangerous of some kind, but he wasn't. He was not dangerous whatsoever. And maybe that's kind of the point.
He just got comboed to death by the entire
But maybe
team, and
that's the
then
point, is that he wasn't as dangerous as Rocket kept fearing he would be. Like, he wasn't this huge, overbearing titan of evil. He was just a evil little man, and Rocket could counteract. I'm thinking this through now that I'm saying it. Like, now I'm kind of
no,
like,
I
I'm
agree.
liking
I
it a
actually
little
agree
better under that thought. But at first blush, I was like, oh, like that wasn't much of a fun finale.
because at this point
You
in
know.
their lives, Rocket has actually evolved,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and he hasn't evolved. He's just given himself more
Hmm.
engineering pieces to counteract what happened to him with Rocket, but he hasn't
Because
changed
he doesn't think he
anything.
needs to. He thinks he's at the top
Yeah,
of the chain. Oh
the
my
high
god.
evolutionary himself hasn't evolved. Rocket
You're
has
turning
evolved
me
because of
around here. You're turning me around
because
here.
of. No, that's just a thought that I had too
Oh,
as
I love
well.
it. I love it.
Because again, the interaction with the actor and everyone else
Hmm.
um, is why I think he was probably the best villain of the trilogy.
Okay, let's jump to Rocket. Rocket being obviously the kind of the main character, quasi main character here. Um, Now Bradley Cooper doing great work. This probably his best work he's gotten to do here. Um, he just kind of lives in this, like he said. He started out listening to the song Creep. He still we remember listening to him in the first Guardians that he's a monster. He's been used. He was fighting with Yondu in two over just being an asshole just to keep people away because he has these feelings. Um, and
Mm.
he finally obviously gets to face them. Is this weird thing where they take him, the modern Rocket, and they kind of sideline him because he gets attacked by Adam,
Mm.
and
Mm.
he's hurt, and so the justification for the action of the film is them trying to save Rocket, but we get him in flashbacks instead, so we get his history, which is interesting, taking him, the modern him, out and putting flashback him in, and then when they come together it's now the modern, at the end in the third act, as he gets to fight his way out of his headspace and physically out of his headspace. What do you guys think of the Rocket work in this storyline, the whole shebang?
Uh, so obviously, this without this, there's no movie. So, but it
Yeah,
worked. It
well,
worked for me. So, because I
mm-hmm,
had no idea where they were going. When they announced Guardians 3, I was like, what are they gonna do, right? Maybe some
mm-hmm,
kind of Kang connection somewhere in the cosmos, whatever. But they didn't touch Kang at all. They didn't do any of that. They had their
Mhm.
own story. They went with it. Um, I was a little disappointed with the Warlock piece of it.
yeah, we'll get to
But
Adam
we'll
Warlock at
get to
the
A
that.
end. Yeah,
little.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
absolutely.
Oh,
only mention it
we'll
because
get
you
to
when
yeah.
you mentioned he injures
Mm-hmm.
Rocket in the beginning. So,
Right.
but yeah, I love the flashbacks. I love the other characters that he was with in the cage. So well
Oh
done.
man, the Sid from
Yeah.
the Sid
Uh,
creations from Toy Story.
yeah, and I loved how they showed what a genius Rocket was even back then. Making the Axis key that he still held on to and would look at from
Mm-hmm.
time to time, and fixing the
Mm.
genetic problem with the other ones, and so it worked for me. The whole thing works.
Mm-hmm. James.
Yeah. So I know we talked about what we were expecting before the movie came out, and the trailer did something really nice, which a lot of these superhero movies don't do. Is it doesn't give you the plot; it gives you the beats and moments that are
Yep.
key to the story, but it doesn't showcase the fact that you say he's quasi. To me, I think he is the main character.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get that from the trailer. You get it by first watching the movie. So after I watched it the first time, I went online like I usually do. Um, no apologies there.
Mm-hmm.
And James Gunn did specifically state that in his mind, he knew this is where he wanted the trilogy to end. If he was going to be able to get three movies, he wanted to get back to this being a rocket story. And you would think that doesn't make any sense because the first two movies are really about Peter
Oh
Quill
yeah,
and Peter
absolutely.
Quill forming this ragtag group of
Mm-hmm.
family. You hear that, Dom Toretto? Family. So if I'm taking James Gunn by his word, and we know Hollywood people sometimes, that it's interesting that this movie and the story was so focused on Rocket to the point where we're getting these flashbacks, right? We're getting you his prequel, we're getting his origin story in the trilogy, which is never done before. Like imagine Batman and Dark Knight Rises, you're getting the Wayne's murder while he's in a pit. You're like, wait, what? Like you would be like, what are you doing, Chris Nolan? Um, but only after you watch the entire movie, then you go back and reflect on the trilogy and you realize his character story is either at or above Peter's because, first of all, he survived the snap.
Mm-hmm.
The people are calling it the blip.
It's a
I'm calling it what
snap.
it is, the
Yeah.
It's a
snap.
snap.
So he lived those 5 years with Nebula, my second favorite character out of the entire trilogy. So he's seen more, and I think it is right for this trilogy to end on his character. From when the opening scene is Peter Quill, we know that when he's getting the Power Stone, but the very next scene is Rocket and Groot.
Yeah.
With Stan Lee, a
Right.
little cameo. So I thought again, James Gunn is flexing his storytelling. We talked about his directing style and use of camera angles, his music choices. but his stories, like the way he wrote this story to me, which I never would expect it to be a Rocket story. Even the trailer showed you little flashbacks of a little bit. You think, oh, they're gonna give you a little flashback, but it's not gonna be the crux of the story,
Right.
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So I think that was a great choice by him, and he executed really well.
I just want to
Yeah.
add something real quick. So, thinking back now, so you think back to the evolution of Rocket through these three movies, but you got to think about Infinity War as well. So, like in the first one, in the second one, he's more standoffish in the beginning, like we were talking about, because he's afraid to have people close to him, which makes more sense when you look at part three and you look at
Hmm.
how he was brought up. And then think about the loss he went through in the flashbacks of part three, but think about the loss in Infinity War as well when Groot was crawling to him about to turn to dust. And yeah,
Hmm.
Twice. He
yeah,
lost Groot twice. He lost
exactly.
Groot in the first movie, and then he
So,
lost. Yeah.
it's that's got to take its toll, right? So, it's just an
Hmm.
interesting development of the character itself through these movies.
And Mr. James Gunn, I think he should have a class for Hall of Hollywood on how to create
Yeah,
family and found
yeah.
families within a movie structure.
Yeah. Vin
Because
Diesel.
one thing he does is he finds interesting pairings. So let's talk about Nebula next, because one thing he found was a cool pairing with Rocket and Nebula. Now, Rocket has had a couple of cool, obviously Rocket and Groot, great pairing. Rocket and Yondu, really cool in number two. But also Rocket and Nebula in number two. Obviously, there's some time in between we haven't seen, which going to be a Disney series, I'm sure, at some point, right? Going to be like Rocket and Nebula during the snap,
Don't forget the Christmas
right?
special. They kind of
Yeah.
showcased
Yep.
the two of
And
them.
he
That's when we first got the Bautista. I'm
the
sorry, the
Bortista.
Drax
Right.
and
Oh, you talk
Mantis
about my
pairing.
pronunciations.
Yeah. Sorry, Bautista. Dave Bautista. So the Christmas special, which we didn't even talk about, and we don't need to,
It was good.
he started showing you
Yeah.
the pairings:
Mhm.
Rocket and Nebula, and Drax
Right.
and Mantis, and Peter, doing his own thing.
Yeah, right at the beginning of this, we see Nebula basically is the default leader as Peter Quill is
Drinking,
out of
drinking his
service for
sorrows
now.
away. Right.
Right, exactly. And
Mhm.
Nebula got some number one, some cool upgrades physically, but this time
Mhm.
stuff she wants.
Mm-hmm.
Very important. Um, Also, like her ability to take command, her want to help and save the group. She feels very connected to them, yet still connected to her sister.
Yeah.
That becomes a small important part here. Um, but Karen Gilliam has done a great job with that character, especially, and it
Fantastic
started in
job.
number two, like really becoming interesting. And then in this one, she does a lot of great stuff, and she pushes some of the other characters, but obviously it's a reflection of her own stuff. And where the character starts in one and ends up here at the very end is a wonderful arc for that character. What did you guys
Agreed.
think of Nebula? Like
Agreed.
James, I know you said it was your
Let me
number
tackle
Yeah.
this
two.
one first,
Yeah.
Mike. First of all, for those of you who don't know, because I'm the geek, right? The comic book character in the original Marvel in the '90s was supposed to be Thanos' granddaughter, who was like not even a real character. It was like a throwaway character that was put front and center in the original Infinity
Total
Gauntlet
Gauntlets.
storyline, and then later on with the Infinity Crusade and Drax and Gamora and their storyline. It was nothing compared to what we got in the James Gunn trilogies and movies with Nebula and the Avengers movies. So for him to take whatever was very very basic out of the comic book and to create this character that in the first movie was supposed to be like a henchman, right? Like one of the henchmen for Ronan that was also connected to the bigger threat, Thanos.
Hmm.
And then, as you said in the second movie, you start seeing her having a backstory and having an actual depth to herself. She wasn't just a henchman. She was someone that Thanos had abused and manipulated to make her feel like she had to do what she had to do. But then she realized she just wanted a sister. You were always very, very good, and I was. And then Infinity War. like give her credit for
Oh
that
yeah.
Oh
movie as
yeah,
well.
absolutely. She was
Like
fantastic.
there's a lot of moments where she brought some actual interesting subplots in that movie, even up until the snap, as her and Rocket were the only two left from the entire crew. And then you get to see Endgame and her involvement as part of a new group of people, and she was still like badass, but she wasn't like, you know,
She wasn't just a
she
robot.
still showed, yeah, she wasn't just
Yeah.
a robot,
Mhm.
right? She was, and watching her entire arc, and again, shout out to the actress, shout out to the writers, Writers Guild, we stand by you guys.
Mhm.
Shout out to the writers for each of these movies with her character. I thought, to me, other than Rocket, she's been my favorite character that came from this James Gunn group of stories. And it's kind of sad now. I feel like we may never get to see her again, because I know now a lot of actors are probably going to go with James Gunn in the DC universe. And I'm not quite sure what the ending tells us with Peter Quill will return. Is that just Peter Quill, or will any of these characters come back again? But like, I really, really, grew with this character.
Mhm.
And it's, yeah,
Like
like,
yeah, like
I don't know,
even
Mike.
she's had some great interactions. Reminds me of Endgame, the scene with Rhodey when Rhodey had the exosuit on, and Rhodey was basically like, "We work with the
Yes,
parts we give in,"
we
and
have.
she's realized, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
more than just the robot, and
Mhm.
yeah, her and Rocket in this one, great team up.
When freaking Ant Man was eating the taco
Mhm.
and he goes, Rhodey, there's an idiot on the launch
Yeah,
pad. Like, you can go back and watch almost
yeah.
every one of her scenes. It's entertaining, deep, or
I mean,
fun,
don't
whatever it
forget
is.
she
Like,
she
it
had to
matters.
play
Her character is
right.
not a
She
throwaway
played two
character.
versions of herself in Endgame.
Oh, that's right.
You
Yeah,
know,
she had to
so
do the whole
Yes.
yep,
double twin.
man.
Yeah,
Shot herself. Oh my God.
such great stuff.
Yeah, so I thought, yeah, she was fantastic. I mean, I don't want to dwell too long on each character because we're gonna run short on time. But
No.
you know,
Yeah, I
I,
know.
I, she
Yeah.
is
And
one definitely needed to be talked about for this movie for sure. So
and speaking of pairings, we're gonna do Drax and
yeah,
Mantis
sorry. One thing
together.
I do want to add:
Yeah.
Mantis and
Hmm.
and Nebula had that great scene when Nebula started yelling at everybody, and Mantis was like, "You can't judge
Yeah, it was the
people.
three of them with
Yeah, you
Drax.
can't
Yeah.
judge everybody on how you want them to be. Right? They all have their own.
Great,
Yeah,
great writing.
some great writing there. So.
And that's why we need to talk about like Drax and
Mhm.
Manta became
We
if
could talk about them as a pair.
yeah, well
Yeah.
they kind of became this inseparable pair in this movie, also in the Christmas
Yeah.
special, and started in volume 2,
Too.
where they just seem to bounce off each other. It kind of lessens that, hey, Drax is just that guy, he's a comedy relief.
And I'm
He
so
felt
glad. I'm so glad
Yeah.
he James Gunn took that down a notch because at the end of
Yes.
episode 2, I was like, they're turning Drax into just a joke, and
right, and I
Just a
thought the
joke.
same thing.
right,
Yeah.
So Thor, and I think it's because the way the characters are supposed to be, as far as the level of intellect, they're not on the same intelligence level of the rest of the crew. They're a little bit
yeah,
naive.
Mhm.
I want to be careful with my words here. They're a little bit naive on certain things. Like Drax is naive when it comes to um,
Interpersonal
uh,
communication.
yeah,
vocabulary,
yeah,
communication, and social cues. Mantis is a hell of a lot naive in social cues and
right,
life experiences because she's been living her entire life under this monster god ego. So their pairing, to me, it
yeah.
became organic because of their level of naivete that I really enjoyed in these, the third movie and so forth.
Yeah, and I was worried it was just going to be like this mean relationship where Drax just constantly insults her, but it actually had this
She
kind of
gave as good as
sweet
she
back
got,
and
I think.
forth
Yeah.
where she got to give.
Mm.
and and
Mm.
interesting, like when she insulted Drax, like called him dumb, and he was honestly hurt. And then it's a little
Yeah.
freaky that she was able to just like wipe his memory,
Wipe his
Yeah.
mind.
but
Yeah.
still, like
You gotta wonder
that
how many
was.
times she's done that before.
But it was interesting to see that character beat from
Hmm.
Drax and from her, and the ending. I know we won't have time to talk about the ending by itself, I don't think, but their endings separating and how hard that
Yeah,
was to watch.
That is sad.
yeah,
That was sad. That was sad.
But I loved about Drax is where he got to end up when she's like, "You're not the destroyer, you're the dad," or something like
right.
that.
That was
Yeah,
Nebula.
Nebula
Nebula was
point.
the one
Nebula
that
nailed
mentioned that.
that one.
Today I learned that you were the
Hmm.
dad, and
That was great
that's
bit
perfect.
for him. I'm glad to see him level up a little bit out of just being the punch him but comedy
Yeah,
relief. You
exactly.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Oh,
sure.
Mantis kicked
All
ass
right.
in this too. Don't forget, she had that great
Oh,
scene in
she got
the.
some
I
great
think
kick-ass
every
moments. Yeah.
character had some kind of. I don't want to necessarily want to call it redemption, but they stepped up their
Mm-hmm.
game like from the last movie for sure. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
she definitely
I
did.
do have some questions about James Gunn's power scaling. I don't want to get. I understand for just for the entertainment value of watching it and letting everybody participate. I don't care.
yeah.
But as a geek sitting there afterwards talking about it, I'm like, how strong is each of these people? Did Rocket Raccoon really take a direct shot from Adam Warlock at full like space flying speed and get back up?
Well,
That
he's
seems a
always wearing
bit.
armor too, right?
Yeah,
His vest isn't. I think it's
Yeah,
armor.
I
So,
just it just felt.
yeah. There's a lot. I mean, power scaling, and not just
mm.
in James Gunn, but all of
Yeah,
MCU.
I don't
It
want to get
depends
into
But
on.
that, but
Drax is
I
supposed to be
just I want to bring
ridiculously
it up.
strong himself, you know?
Which is
Yeah.
why it bugged me in one. He got his ass handed
Right.
to him so
By Ronan,
badly.
yeah.
And that spaceship stuff too. He
Yep.
was getting his ass handed to him.
Right? And then sometimes people are picking stuff up they shouldn't pick. I don't know. Whatever.
We could have on
I
yeah,
don't
we
want
can
to.
have an entire episode on power scaling in the
Right.
MCU. So
All right. Let's talk about Quill and Gamora because it's they kind of have to go as a pair. I'm
yeah,
personally happy they got split up. I like a found family that doesn't necessarily. I like that Peter Quill had to grow with the loss of Gamora.
yeah.
That was nice to see
Yes.
him finding love in multiple places and not just like, oh, I've got a girlfriend and a family now. Like now I have different levels of relationships and a maturity that we finally got to see out of his character. And Gamora finding her own way that didn't just repeat the beats from Guardians 1. So I liked those two
And let's be
characters.
honest. To me, it would have felt cheap if they somehow rekindled their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It would have made what happened in Infinity War. The stakes there would have been like non-apparent
This
because
right.
now she sacrificed her life.
Not on purpose.
Her,
She didn't
yeah,
sacrifice
not
it.
on I mean, she came back. Her life was
Yeah.
sacrificed,
Uh,
and now she's back as of okay, just like everything else in the blip is now we're back to being lovers again. Nah, I like the fact that they went
Yeah,
separate
I
ways.
initially when I came out of the theater, I was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I was sad that they didn't hook up, but then, yeah, upon thinking about it and discussing with James later, James had a good point that, yeah, it wouldn't have really made sense, and it would have been bad for the movie just to have them hooked back up, you know. So
yeah, and I hate watching a character just in that mode that Peter Quill was in the first half of this movie, which was uh, drinking himself to death
yeah,
sad, and then once he's faced with the thing that's making him sad, just being a dick about it.
hmm
Like and like the thing on the elevator.
Sounds like Iron Man 3.
Right. The thing on the elevator, like, okay, it's a good way to get us some people caught up who weren't caught up, but it was starting to get grate on me. Like there was a certain level of meanness in the first half or 2/3 of this movie, sad mean between the characters that I felt kind of reduced my joy of it a little bit. And
I see what you're saying. I actually like the fact that Gamora was almost repugnant
mm,
of Peter
I get it. No, no,
to
no,
the
not
point
that
where
her.
she physically struck him
I don't think it's
because
her. It was Peter Quill
uh,
specifically and some Drax stuff and some Rocket stuff. Like everybody was in that mode in the beginning.
I see what you're saying.
And I think
Yeah.
that's part of it. Everybody was bickering. Like the thing on the planet, like when they landed and they were in the spacesuits and he picked the wrong
oh yeah, the
com.
Color
broadcast
There
thing,
was
yeah,
some
comms. Yeah.
meanness. It's just unnecessary. Felt a little mean
hmm
this time around. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I felt it was like too widespread to everybody. But I thought I liked the character. I liked the path they went through, and I liked the growth that they had. I think I'll say.
Same,
Um,
same.
Groot. Unfortunately, Groot doesn't get much growth in this. It's more like
Oh, he gets growth. It's like he's on 3 different rounds of steroids.
That's right.
What are you talking about? Doesn't get growth.
he
He's the only one that actually physically grows.
and at the end
He
he's
did have
really
some
There's
cool action
there's
scenes when
there's
he pulled out all the
kaiju.
guns and the arms and stuff.
There's
That was awesome. Yeah.
dude. There's that scene. There's kaiju.
Hmm.
Groot when he becomes a kaiju.
wings.
Yes.
There's the Batman Groot, and then there's super freaking The Rock version of Groot at the
Uh,
post credit scene. Dude,
Right. I was
he's growing.
I don't know about you guys, but I hated hearing Vin Diesel's voice in English. I really did. I know it's supposed to be,
I
hey, we're
love you,
all parts,
fam.
we all
I love you
understand it.
guys.
I did not like that at all.
You know what I think? I bet you he tried to ad lib,
some
"We are
bullshit.
family," and then James Gunn was like, "Let's
Yeah.
just change that line and say, I love you guys."
I still didn't like it.
Yeah.
Like I love We Are Groot. We Are Groot is
Yeah.
enough range for that character. I think that was perfect, and this
I
just
thought
didn't
they,
cut it.
I thought he was gonna tell that to Adam Warlock when Adam was like, "Why
Mhm.
did you save me?" I
We
thought he
are
was gonna
Groot.
say,
Yeah.
"We are Groot," and I'm like, "Oh, okay," yeah. But no, he didn't
Yeah.
do that.
All right, let's do a quick Adam Kraglin and Cosmo. Did you guys like
Yeah,
I thought Cosmo was okay, but
anything to
I don't want
say?
to elaborate too much on it.
Cosmo was okay.
Okay.
The only thing about Kraglin, and I think this was maybe two on the nose. Well, the first time I saw it, I liked it, but then second and third viewing, I'm like, yeah, it's two on the nose. The
Uh,
Yondu flashback, it's in your heart thing. It didn't hit me at on second. It didn't age well.
Right.
The second and third time I saw that scene, it didn't age well.
I think that
So and
Michael Rooker is like, yeah, sure, I'll come in and do 18 hours of face paint to get on there for 3 seconds. Oh,
yeah, and then Cosmo was Cosmo.
okay. I guess we have to talk about Adam Warlock.
Ugh.
Will
I already
Poulter.
talked about him in my quick peek. I'm not
I
going to
think
mention him anymore.
physically he looked fine. The costume looked
mm,
good. None of that stuff is any problem. But the characterization as this baby superhero that got pulled out of the oven too soon, and so he's just a moron.
yeah.
And it kind of felt like it's sort of a Draxus like interaction for everything, and I felt like you're just doubling up on the same type of character because there were a lot of these kind of dumb, like the rest of the gold people were supposed to be kind of dumb too. I don't know. It just felt it didn't do anything for the
Overplayed in
character.
the
It didn't
movie.
do anything for
Yeah.
me. Yeah, and I guess it was there to move. I understand why it's there. It moved the plot along. It kind of became important, especially at the end. Another person who was treated wrong as your enemy that becomes family at
Yeah.
the end. I get it, Fast and Furious. I get it, but
I'm just my
I
hope is that they evolve his character pretty quickly. Like if he's to return in future movies.
well, he'll be important
Well, again,
in the
I'm
Kang
going to
Verse.
resurrect this comment from the quick peek that I mentioned to our subscribers. The the Silver Age, the '60s and early '70s version of the character when he was just him,
Mm-hmm.
he was like
Yeah.
Jesus Christ born, but like not fully baked character.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't comical like this. He was just kind of like a new, not knowing
Naive.
life and
Yeah.
not knowing
Naive.
his full powers.
Yeah, but he could have been
Then
like a
after
Wonder
his second
Woman
resurrection,
version of this
yeah, he could
versus
have,
a,
but
that.
he wasn't, and
Okay.
that's why I mentioned it quickly. I didn't like it. The second incarnation of him in the '90s when he came back from the Soul Gem and then the whole Thanos imperative,
That's where
he
I
was
know him
definitely a lot
from.
more evolved.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's where we most of it, we know him mostly from. So I'm hoping if they do bring the character back, they would have done the jump into the second incarnation by then, where he's much more wise and
Yeah.
experienced and
Mm-hmm.
a
Right.
hell of a lot more powerful.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, since we already did our music talk, I'll say overall, I really liked this movie. I enjoyed the characters each getting some growth. I didn't like the new characters as much as some other movies. So like where it's falling amongst those. We'll talk about that in a second. But I'll say I gave this movie overall an A minus because I just it hit me in the feels. James Gunn has a very specific talent of hitting his kind of his comedy, his very specific lowbrow, little lowbrow comedy, but also nailing your emotional beats and making sure the characters aren't just appearing and saying their emotional
Mm-hmm.
beat. It brings you into it. It lands the plane every time on those emotional beats, and it's really what elevates this among the trilogies within the MCU. So I'm going to give it my A minus. What's your guys' grades for Guardians before we rate them?
Go ahead, James.
A plus.
Woo!
I already said it. My quick peek. Go back to my quick peek. After this, click on my quick peek and A plus.
All right, I'm gonna go with straight A on this one. Um, Definitely enjoyable. I not many issues, if any, I can think of. I'll probably nitpick on future watches, but right now I'm going
Right.
with the A.
Okay. Now I want you to rate this among the other Guardians. Is this first, second, or third? For me, I'm going Guardians 1 is my favorite, even if it has the weakest of the
Mm-hmm.
antagonists, but it's still my favorite. I think I think I like Ego so much that kind of brings two up, but this may be my second favorite, probably to rewatch if I were to go around, even though I haven't yet. But I have a feeling it's going to be just because I like the arcs of the characters where they end up.
Right.
The finale I think was particularly. I was happy they didn't kill anybody. Spoilers for anybody who expected that. So it may be my second favorite, even though Ego is the best villain, absolutely bar none. And Yondu in 2 was amazing. Sorry.
Yeah, it's true. I think I'm gonna.
So what do you guys rate it among the other
Yeah, I
two?
think I'm gonna go 1, 3, and 2 in my rankings. Because 2,
Mm-hmm.
I do. I can't really put my finger on it. It's just something about 2 was just annoying to me. I,
I can put my finger on it. It's
I think
ego.
so,
But go
but
ahead.
I don't know.
I kind of like like to hate Ego though.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought his what's his face's performance was great. You know, yeah, I thought he
Mm-hmm.
did a good
Kurt
job.
Russell. Yeah, it was too Kurt Russell-y, though. That's the thing.
Snake Plissken.
I think I've seen this in almost every one of his roles. Yeah. I mean, I think Mike, you already said went. For me, it's three, without a doubt, bar none. Best true villain, best story. Maybe not the best music.
Mm-hmm.
Then one, best music, best introduction of a character in any of maybe Iron Man. I take that back. Introduction of a
Mm-hmm.
character or group in the MCU. And then two was a third. And not that listen, I'm not saying two is a bad movie. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely one of the best it's in the top half of the MCU movies. It's just not a rewatchable for me. It just comes down to that. Like if it's on, right now, if it's on TNT or whatever, am I going to stop what I'm doing to take a look at any particular scenes other than maybe some of the middle scenes between
I think
Nebula
you'd be
and
surprised.
Gamora?
I just rewatched it because I was somebody we know had never seen it, and we watched it, and I went,
Hmm.
"Huh, this is better than I remember it being." And
I think for me, those scenes would have to be Nebula. It would have to be Nebula and Gamora when they first arrive at
oh,
Ego. When
Nebula
she
Gamora when
lands,
when
she
she
attacks
attacks
him.
her with the flame.
Yes,
Yes, I
yes.
love that
To
scene so
me, if
much.
I'm at that scene, I'm gonna stop and watch it.
Mhm.
But the first movie and this movie doesn't matter where I'm at. I'm gonna
Yeah.
take a gander for real.
And
So yeah,
the Yondu heartbreaking death scene.
Right.
Come on,
and that scene,
the
yes, at
best
the
death
end.
scene in all of these movies.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, Iron Man, your death scene doesn't seem to count, but
No, no, in all of in
Jesus.
all the Guardians movies. Guardians movies.
What?
Yeah, it
Better than
is. It is. It's
Taser
better than
faces?
Groot's
It,
death
it
scene in
would
the
be
first one.
it would be almost
It's
be
better than
Groot
Groot's death scene in the
because he
first one.
comes back. I know it's a different
because he
group,
comes back. Yeah,
but
yeah, you're right.
okay.
Yandu was good.
Quick, is this the best trilogy within the
I
MCU?
don't know. I don't
Is
know
this
about that
better
one.
than Captain America trilogy? Is really the only question. Is this better than now? You could say the Avengers are it's not really a
Yeah.
trilogy; it's a
No, you
quadrilogy.
can't
So
count the Avengers. No,
so I would
I
say
mean I would argue this is the best of only because Captain America 1,
I
man,
can't. I love
it's
it.
tough on a rewatch.
It's not. I watch.
The first
I
Avenger,
literally rewatched that on its own just because I love that
there's
movie.
like the whole middle portion of the movie when they're just showing you
It's a
montages of
montage,
them going through
but so
Europe.
does
And you're
Rocky,
like,
and you love Rocky. Rocky has a montage.
but but they have a great soundtrack to those montages, which First Avenger didn't have. It had the original theme. Now the second and third movies, they carry like the entire weight of the trilogy. Whereas this movie, every one of these movies is a banger. And two being the weakest one to me, I'll still put ahead of
Mm.
First Avenger.
Interesting. Interesting.
And that's why when you weighted balance scale, I
It's the
think
most
this might be the
consistent
better.
trilogy, that's for sure, because it does feel
Yeah.
like there is a
It's like the Denver Nuggets.
yeah.
Yeah, they got Jokic, but they're like well-rounded team. They don't have a LeBron per se or Steph Curry. They've got a genuine superstar and a bunch of role players that know their roles and they're consistent. Game in and game out. They don't lag. They play first quarter to fourth quarter the same way.
Yeah, but Cap has Magic Johnson and Kareem. It's like you have both giant
Yeah, but then
superstars.
but then they lose two games to the freaking 76ers and it's yeah, now you got to go to game 7. Like why do we even get to game 7? You got Magic and like what the hell? It should have been a sweep.
All right.
That's my point.
Anyway,
Cap should have been a sweep.
all right. So it's between those two though. Like it's definitely not any of the others. Okay,
Yeah.
that's gonna be it for our Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 review. Thank you guys for joining me with this. Had a great time talking about it. Had a great time watching this movie. Everybody should go watch it.
Yeah,
The
definitely.
MCU is back
We'll see it.
again.
Yeah.
After
Back again.
again. It comes back again in Secret Wars in a few days.
Mm.
Few weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks I
Yeah.
think.
All right. Mike, where can the wonderful people find us and comment and tell us about what they thought about Ant-Man? Wow. That was a Freudian slip.
Don't do not
Comment
troll us
about
with
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
Yeah. So
About
if
Guardians.
you want to comment on Guardians of the Galaxy 3, you can find us all over our social media at Heroes Peak, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the bell in the corner for notifications, and leave a comment below. If you've seen Guardians 3, let us know what you think of the movie, what you liked, what you didn't like. Leave a comment.
And what's your favorite
Yes,
MCU
please leave a
trilogy?
comment.
Yeah.
Tell us what your
Yes.
favorite MCU
And that too.
trilogy is.
Tell us, am I right or am I wrong about Captain America should have been a sweep? Because now that we go back and look how Civil War ended, it should have been like a sweep from the first movie on.
And I was actually down on Civil War until I started rewatching it multiple
Yeah.
times, and I've come up on that. Just because I love that it is about Cap and Bucky throughout. Like at first I was like, oh man, they kind of
Fantastic.
lost the thread, but in reality they
Fantastic.
didn't. They kind of it built on it.
We can argue the third acts in each of those movies were higher than the Guardians' third act. That's a good debate. Like the Civil War when Bucky and Cap are going at it on the Shield ship,
Oh,
and he's like,
I won't fight you.
I'm with you
Yeah.
to the end. And then when the whole part from when Tony realizes that Cap knows
Yeah.
about his parents, you can argue the third act of that or the higher
Yeah.
than Guardians. But as a movie,
All right. That's for next time.
All right.
that's another debate.
That's it.
Yeah, that's another debate.
Hey, Indigo made the beat.